Srila Guru Maharaj, he said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the leader of the Harinam party, Nagar Sankirtan, must be a pure devotee. Right? Whoever leads the kirtan must be a pure devotee. So then someone can say, then what are we doing? Well, Kripaya Hari Kirtana Murti Dharam Dharani Haraka Gaura Janam Janaka Adhika Vatsalashnigna Padam Pranamami Siddha Prabhupada Padam. The leader of this Sankirtan is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Saraswati Thakur. They're the leaders of this. And interesting, that Saraswati Thakur once asked, Guru was asked if he was like singing and dancing in the, as you call it, Harinam, the Nagar Sankirtan. And Guru Maharaj said, like shocked, he said, Prabhupada? Inconceivable. Meaning, it's inconceivable to me to imagine him singing and dancing, who he described in his song, Kripaya Hari Kirtana Murti, the Hari Kirtan Murti. So this is very peculiar and very interesting. He's the leader, but they wouldn't see his lips move or him move. Right? He was so grave. As a child, they had a school picture once where all the children are supposed to be singing in a choir, like looking like little angels. They're actually supposed to be singing and then take the picture. And he was like, and the teacher came and said, could you at least open your mouth so it looks like you're singing? So, and Guru Maharaj told of once in the Brajamandal Parikrama where he went to take the shoes of Saraswati Thakur, and somehow Saraswati Thakur was resisting and said, no, give them to me. And Guru Maharaj remarked that the way he said this was so beautiful. Just these words, give them to me. And his movement, he said that every word that ever came out of his mouth was kirtan, and his every movement and gesture was dance. Everything he ever did. If you had the eyes to see, he descended from the plane where all speech is sung and all movement is dance. One of Srila Gurudev's favorite slokas and sections is the concluding verses of the Brahma Samhita, where it says that when it's like Katha Ganam Natya Gamanam. The Katha, all the Katha is Gan, means singing, and all the movement is dance. So we have to think about this deeply. Srila Guru Maharaj informs us, Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Satchid Anandam, Anandam Sundaram, that the highest aspect of the truth is beauty and ecstasy. Right? Sundaram and Ananda. Ananda Sundar, Sundar Anandam. And so Guru Maharaj will mention that when movement is enhanced with beauty, then it's called dance. When speech is enhanced with beauty, it's called song. So sometimes in literature, when there's what we call poetry and prose, prose means generally the non-poetic arrangements of sentences, like it looks like writing in paragraphs. But if some writer is really extraordinary and gifted, critics will observe that they'll say the prose, it starts turning into poetry. Although people are speaking sentences and it starts sounding like extraordinarily beautiful, as if it's some kind of mysterious poetry. Those sort of observations are even there in the mundane realm of literature and the arts. So, Srila Saraswati Thakur, what he's speaking when he is incessantly engaged in Hari Katha, Krishna Katha, and Srila Guru Maharaj, some of the things Srila Guru Maharaj would say, I found them to be poetic, so I left them the way they were. Like when I was looking for the back cover of Search for Sri Krishna, put the Shrinvantu Vrishe Amritasya Putra, but the way he said it in English is very poetic. He said, "Oh, you sons of nectar, sons of the nectarine ocean sea, please listen to me. You are born to taste nectar. You must not allow yourselves to be satisfied with anything less than nectar." It has a poetic sort of cadence and sound to it. So that is also song. We have the Gopi Gita. In the Bhagavatam, one of the most important chapters in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is the sound of that? Tava katam ritam tapta jivinam kavibir iditam kalmasha apaham Sravana mangalam srimad atatam bhuvi grananti te burida jana. So Vishwanath Chakrabarti will point out, if you listen, he can hear on a subtle level, he's still giving some hints. Like the seventh syllable, tava katam ritam ta. Again, ta jivanam. Ka vibir iditam ka kalmasha apaham. Sravana mangalam Sri mad atatam. So ta, ka, Sri, Sri. And he maintains this for around this type of beautiful lyrical rhythmic structure for around 20 slokas. And as Gurudev said, Gurudev always has some very unique insight into things he said. And it's also sometimes a little humorous too. He said that those introductory slokas for the foundation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, is like the dance of elephants. Like, so, like if you've ever been to the circus, seen the elephants dance, it's extraordinary and astonishing, but you want to watch it from a distance. You don't want to get too close. So he's saying these slokas, Janmad yasya yatonvayad itaratascha arteshu abhigyasvarat tene brahma hridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsuraya tejo varimadam yata vinimayo yatra trishargomersha damna svena sada nirastakukam satyam param dhimahi. It's actually the movement of the tiger, this sloka, the way tigers move. But anyway, so he's saying, but he compared that to the dance of elephants. He said, astonishing, but you don't want to come near. He said, the same Veda Vyas, when he gets to the Gopi Gita, because now it's those teenage girls, Gopi girls, right, of Vrindavan, when they start singing in separation to Krishna, and Tavakatam ritam tapta jivanam kavibir iditam kalmasha apaham. It's all, different gopis are saying these things. And as a footnote, interestingly, he doesn't mention who they are, because we're told for various reasons, one of which is, Sukadev Sanatana Goswami says in the Brihad Bhagavatamritam Tika, and this can give us a hint of the position of Saraswati Thakur as well, that, well, the first reason is considering the qualifications of the audience. So some things should be kept confidential, private, and implied or intimated by inference. You can infer certain things. The other is mentioned by Sanatana Goswami about Sukadev. He's saying, if he will vibrate their names, just by vibrating their names, it will ignite a fire of separation in his heart that is so intense, he'll, lose all composure. He won't be able to speak. He won't be able to continue. So he prefers to say, then one gopi said, and then say what she said. Then another one said, and then another one came forward. Each one is different, but Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, who's our savior of all these things, and always giving the insight, he'll say, the first one, and he'll name who she is. This second one, this one is Radharani, this one is Lalita, Chandravali said this, and he's revealing who said all those things. But as once when I remind, we hear the kokil every day, Kurvati kila kokila, Rupa Goswami's sloka that Gurudev appreciated, that, and without going into the details of the explanation now, but once, at different times, few times he discussed this, but one time I mentioned it to him, and he said, Maharaj, if I think about that right now, I'll go to pieces. Means I'll lose all emotional, it will destroy me. So I can't think about it. Right? So, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the leader must be a pure devotee, Shuddha Bhakta, a pure Vaishnava. And that's why I was saying in one context as well, when devotees are having some kirtan, and now we'll get into the extension of that, that the leader has to at least be someone who is initiated. So you're saying, now we've gone from a pure, there must be only led by a pure devotee. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, do not join in a kirtan not performed by a pure devotee. Like there are these so-called kirtans on the internet, or singers, performers, and sometimes they have names that sound like devotee names, but they're not actually Vaishnavas. So we're told not to join into that kirtan, not to hear. A Vaishnava mukod girnam putam harikatamritam sravanam naiva kartavyam sarpo chistam yatapayo. Sanatana Goswami is very heavy about it, saying, do not hear it. We said, no, but I thought hearing the, Tavakatamri, hearing about Krishna, hearing the name of Krishna, this is what will liberate everyone. Mahaprabhu descended to give the Hari Nam to everyone. Now you're saying not to hear. Yes, because now it comes down to quality. What is the quality of Krishna Nam? And one place Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that Mayavadis also chant the name of Krishna. He said, but when they take the name of Krishna, it's like a thunderbolt hitting the holy body of Krishna. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's opinion. So then we will say and observe the Krishna consciousness came from Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to Saraswati Thakur, to his followers. So you see the rapid expansion and extension of the Krishna consciousness movement. I thought about this for a long time. Like, as you imply, so many devotees, and I knew them, they know me too. We'd think like, how did this happen with this group? Knowing what our flaws are, lack of qualifications, etc. Reminds me of one of my friends said about Sureshwari's husband, Brishakapi Prabhu, who's a very dear friend of mine, that he said when he joined some temple in a city in America, and her husband was the temple president, he said, I thought I met the most advanced spiritual person like in the world, in the universe. And later, we dearly love him, and he helped us with Guru Maharaj preaching in the very beginning. But we could say, I could say if he was here or if he's watching, his reputation was not such later, but that's the way he said, when I met him, I thought he's the most spiritually advanced person I ever met, and like in the whole world, in the universe. And I said, you know what? He was. He was the most spiritually advanced person you ever met in the whole universe. And why there was some potency to what he said is because Prabhupada was the pure devotee leading that kirtan. So all of his disciples, whatever they were doing on his order. It goes back to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu was saying, Amara Gyai Guru Hoya Taro Eidesh, Jari Dako Tari Kaho Krishna Upadesh. On my order, I'm telling you, Krishna Upadesh. You tell everyone, Krishna's, it's Mahaprabhu's order, and then Chaitanya Saraswat, from Mahaprabhu to Saraswati Thakur and his followers. Guru Maharaj's explanation of why Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. One explanation. So Mahaprabhu's divine order and sanction in the background, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur resetting the course. They needed a reset, like we had to do a reset. When things got really out of hand and off track in time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur reset the Krishna consciousness movement. So then to Saraswati Thakur and his followers. So Prabhupada is actually infusing the kirtan of his disciples with potency and compensating, Krishna's compensating for their lack of qualification. So we saw mysteriously how potent this movement was, even if sometimes the devotees, just for the sake of argument, let's say, misrepresented something. Maybe conceptually something was not perfectly represented. That's always possible. Once when Srila Guru Maharaj's book, Prapanna Jivanamritam, was being translated, and remember, all translation is interpretation. Right? All translation is interpretation. So when his book was being interpreted, I saw how it was, and it just so happened that morning he spoke on one of the verses, sloka, that are in the book. So I heard his own English rendering of what that was, and then saw what was being given. So I met with him privately and I said, Maharaj, it's not exactly like what you said this morning, that level of depth, comprehension, representation, etc. And interestingly, he said to me, is anything coming through? I said, oh, yes. He said, then it has its value. Like that. That was his answer. Then it has its value. And then he gave an example. He has always give a perfect example to help you fully grasp what he is saying. And he said, just like when you go to give the class, and there's some particular sloka, and you're giving an explanation of that sloka. He said, it's not like what you said, that's it, nothing more can be said, this is the ultimate and final explanation of this sloka. He said, but according to your capacity, your level, your ability to represent, and your inspiration at that time, you're giving, taking that it's faithful, giving a faithful representation according to your capacity. Right? Think of that. It's a faithful representation according to your capacity. That's the actual answer to your question. But sometimes, many times, we're self-analytical. Right? Atma Samiksha means we're examining ourselves. So sometimes, and Srila Avadut Maharaj and I, we have this discussion regularly. And it reminds me of something Gurudev said once too. That, and every devotee has this experience. They may say, oh, I didn't feel what I said then was like best, or I wasn't inspired, or I was giving a rote recitation of some answer. But you may find a person who they're saying like, God was talking to me. Krishna was speaking to me. Or some devotee, Gurudev was talking to me. Even Prabhupada told Guru Maharaj that once. He said, remember when Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur said, like, go to the west? And Guru Maharaj said, but he was telling everybody go to the west. And he said it so many times. Which time? But Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj, no, there was this time where he said this, and it was like, to me, it went in my heart, and it was just took over my heart. It was for me. That's possible. Once, when some devotee came out of Saraswati Thakur's room, and he was like very excited, and he wanted to share with the others, like, Prabhupada, like Saraswati Thakur said some things in his favor. So immediately he wanted to share them with other devotees, like, Prabhupada said, But that person is Guru Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj is like listening. And Guru Maharaj quoted this verse, Sanskrit verse, and that Maharaj went to someone else. What does that mean? And it's the sloka where it says, each gopi thought that Krishna was dancing with her and her alone. That's how Guru Maharaj's internal aspect operates a little bit. So it's said, when all the gopis are with Krishna, I think, Krishna is just with me. But there are millions and billions of gopis. The Absolute has that capacity to reciprocate with everyone simultaneously. Otherwise, he's not the Absolute. But that said, but Radharani, she can see, like there are those who think he's only dealing with her. Srimati Radharani thinks, why Krishna is dealing with everyone and treating me equally? She has another way of seeing. Sometimes. So then we're told, what does she do? Gandharvika. Why does she have that name? Gandharva, Gandharvika. That's when she's singing and dancing. Like Guru Maharaj's deity of Radharani, she's dancing as a dancing Radharani. And why? To keep Krishna attracted to her. She's singing and dancing and charming him. But in this instance, what did she do? She sang, after Lalita, Vishaka sang and danced extraordinary, then Lalita, then Radharani, finally. And everyone was like fainting to see her singing and dancing, and Krishna's totally enamored and mesmerized, and then she left. And Krishna suddenly, he's with a billion gopis, and thinks, this experience, the quality of this experience has become down. What happened? One person left out of a billion, and the whole experience went down. And Krishna think, what happened? So Jayadev Goswami says, Radha Madaya Hridaye Tatyaja Brajasundari. With Radharani in his heart captured by Radharani, Tatyaja Brajasundari, Tyagged all the Brajasundaris, the beautiful gopi girls of Braja, and went searching for her. So when we say Krishna is the thief in different ways, and Guru Maharaj said, and we're very fortunate that he's a thief. As he said, thief needs no invitation. So you don't say, I'm going to be out Friday night, so you can rob me between, 11 and 2. No one does that. But the thief comes at their own time, on their own interest. So Guru Maharaj said, we've built bulwark. It means like, Kremlin means fort. So yeah, we've put our heart inside the Kremlin and trying to keep Krishna out. Saying, but we're very fortunate, Krishna will enter for his own purpose. So he's known as Chitta Hari, steals the hearts of the Naga, the naked renunciates who don't have anything to steal. Steals the hearts of Braja Gopis. Gopi Jana Bastra Hari takes their clothes while they're bathing. Makan Chor, he's stealing this. So many things. But Guru Maharaj said, Hare, like Hari means to take away. He said, but Hare, Radharani, she's the greatest thief because she can steal Krishna. Krishna's stealing all these other things, but she can steal the mind of Krishna. Like with her Manohar Lal Ladu, this sweet she makes, it's a mind stealing, makes you lose your mind type sweet. So when she left, Bhagavan Hari or Ishvara, Krishna went and searched for her. So, why was I saying this? That,
You were telling the story about Gurudev.
And you were talking
Yeah.
to
right, about,
You want to say something, and sometimes you cannot say right.
oh right, and that, so there's a famous sloka, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paryupasate Tesha Sata Bhyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. It's where Krishna says, I compensate for any deficiency in my devotees. The way Prabhupada had it rendered originally in his Bhagavad Gita as it is, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have, or I preserve what they have, carry what they lack. So it means if you're short on something, whatever that is, Krishna says, I take care of that part. And there's this famous story of this man, his name is something like Arjuna Charja, and he thought, that can't be right. That just doesn't sound right. Krishna will be like, it made him think Krishna being too servile to the devotees, or somehow in his, and he scratched that part out. Right? And then we're told later, these two boys come, his wife needed some water, these two boys come, they're carrying water, but they're like bruised, and she goes, boys, what happened to you? And they say, your husband beat us. What? Your husband, he beat us. And the wife is shocked because normally her husband was a nice person. And then, long story short, come to understand, those boys are like the personification of those words that he scratched in the book. So it was like beating them. Right? And Krishna wanted to say, no, I personally compensate for any deficiencies that my devotees have. So the reason I mention this is because through, not here I'm not talking about Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, Gurudev, I'm talking about the devotees who were instrumental in spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. With all their flaws and deficiencies, Krishna compensated it all. So people would have some divine transaction. Even if they didn't 100% get it right, the person was affected. In their heart, they got something. So all this Harinam, the Nagar Sankirtan, the many things the devotees did, the people on the other side, they do get something. And it's real. And if there's some fault on our part, Krishna's compensating for that. That's why I'm saying this. So, but still, so then how does this translate on down from the pure devotees who are leading to their surrogates and representatives? That then we want the devotees who are leading those kirtans, that they're, devotees in good standing, they're initiated devotees, they will lead the kirtans. Right? And you see, I think you observe, my favorite thing is look on Gupta Govardhan site, is seeing these Nagar Sankirtan, the so-called Harinam pictures. And I remember, before I joined, when I was like getting serious about joining, it was like in 1970 or so, and I'd get these Back to Godhead magazines, and sometimes I would just look at the pictures of the devotees like, like singing and dancing. I could look at them for hours. I can still look at them. I looked at pictures today for at least 2 hours. And I remember when I was really starting to think, like, I'm going to join, but like hesitating. And so there were these two devotees, Guru Kripa and Yasodanandan. The two of them would do this incredibly over-the-top, intense Harinam in front of this store in downtown San Francisco. I mean, they would be jumping 3 feet off the ground, and it was just two of them. And sometimes it was one of them, because one would go and they were trying to collect to go to India, so sometimes it would be one. When we would go out in the so-called old days in LA, sometimes it was just one. Because if there were only two of us, one person would be distributing, and the other were, And then we also had a group, but when we had a group, if someone was like wandering off and getting too like spaced out or something, they'd go like back in the center of the group and like get some more strength before they could talk to the people. But anyway, I was watching them leaping, and sometimes I would just go in a store and act like I was making a phone call and just watch them, because I'm like, how long are they going to do this? So there's some, on a propaganda level, there's something extraordinary about it that people seem to appreciate, and an old devotee in ISKCON told me the first time he saw the devotees chanting, he was calling them names and throwing stones at them. And he later became an initiated disciple of Prabhupada. The devotees won him over. And I remember in San Francisco, again before I joined, sometimes I was selling like underground newspapers and North Beach, and the Harinam party would come and they'd be there chanting, and I was like on the other side of the street. I was already going to the temple at that point, but some tourists, a famous tourist spot, some of them would go like, who are those people? And I'd say, oh, they're the devotees of Krishna. And he'd say, well, who's Krishna? And I say, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because that's what I heard in the temple every day. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh. So it's, Nama Chintamani Krishna is like, it's like a touchstone in the Sparshamani Indian sense, philosopher's stone. You just come in connection with this, and somehow it's good for you. And you can see, I see in those pictures too, you see who are the simple-hearted people, and the ones who have some sukriti, they just like it. They don't even know why, but you can tell they like it. And the ones who don't, Deva Sura Eva Cha, Dvabhuta Sarvalokesmin, Deva, Krishna says, 2 kinds of people in this world. We don't have to go into that right now. But people who really don't like it, there's something wrong with them on some level. But like that man I mentioned, they can even be converted in time. Like Gadadhar Das. We have Gadadhar Pandit, heart, Gadadhar Das, halo. Bhav and Kanti, and Gadadhar Das. And Chandra Kanti appeared as Gadadhar Das. Because the gopis in the spiritual world, they sometimes come as the male devotees of Mahaprabhu in his pastimes. But he went to the Muslim governor, and he said, how can I help you? He said, I would like you to take Krishna Nam. And he said, why should I take Krishna Nam? I'm a Muslim. He said, already you've taken. So, many people, they're mysteriously benefited in so many ways. At the same time, there's the excuse me, the offense of the holy name, of distributing the holy name to the faithless. And so this is a quandary, can be a dilemma, because we know that not everyone is faithful, right? Or has some faith in this. But still, as Prabhupada will point out in his purport, the preachers take this risk. It's a risk they take, but it should still be taken cautiously. Like, we don't instruct about it unless someone is like seriously inquiring. Pranipatena. Pranipat in this sense means some respectful approach. There are also people who just want to argue, or are challenging, or trying to bait you. And we should avoid those things, right? But if someone is seriously inquisitive, we can say a little something, right? Now, previously also on this, devotees would make so-called mantra cards. It says the Hare Krishna, Hare, But we saw in time, and this is something Guru Maharaj cannot tolerate, they would be all over the sidewalk, in the rubbish bin. That can't be. There's no necessity to do that. And in the modern digital age, you meet somebody who wants to know more. We discussed this before. And you can give them something with some digital info on it. But like printing the holy name on something and trying to give to so many people, and then that will end up in a unfortunate situation. That's not a good idea, actually. We've modified that in time. But Guru Maharaj, like he told us with books, and there are some exceptions, but he told us to use Shanta Rasa representations of spiritual things, which means chakra, lotus, mridanga, like that. But so once some sahajiyas objected to a Gaudiya Math publication that had the pictures of the gurus in the front, like that this wasn't proper, and they're saying along the lines that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the holy body of Krishna. So this famous, I have his moniker, Goswami Maharaj, Aprakrita, Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. The reason he was given Aprakrita is because he was a so-called Nityananda Bangsha, descended in the family line of Nityananda Prabhu. So they're very revered in the Vaishnava community in India. They have a lion and everything. But generally Gaudiya Math was dismissing them as being a bloodline as opposed to having the flow of spiritual current. But that Goswami Maharaj joined Saraswati Thakur, so he called him Aprakrita, because, in other words, appearing like the mundane ones, but not. So Guru Maharaj gave him Aprakrita Goswami, like Bhakti Saranga Goswami, but they would use the Aprakrita appellation before. But anyway, he came to those people who were objecting, and he knows how much they revere his family line. So I can't even say exactly what he told them on camera, but about how worshipable they consider them to be. But so after the man said, "Yes, Goswamiji, yes, we accept whatever you say." And then he told him, he said, "So I'm telling you that Srila Saraswati Thakur," there's a picture of Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, "they are Radharani's delegation. This is how you should see them. And so that Radharani will come in connection with the holy body of Krishna. You think that is objectionable? Krishna will be very happy." That was his explanation. So if you can give an explanation like that, maybe you can do other extraordinary things too. So, still, and Saraswati Thakur, what did he say? When Guru Maharaj met Saki Charan Babu, who he donated land in Mayapur for Gaudiya Math, Chaitanya Math, and he also donated the original land of the Chaitanya Saraswat Math and lived with Guru Maharaj in the very beginning in the thatched hut days. And he was one of the first people to ever meet Srila Saraswati Thakur when he started coming out in his preaching bhav or mode. And he's the one who told Guru Maharaj that Saraswati Thakur would sometimes be in a room, and we should remember, these men, they know some Sanskrit, they're highly evolved, born in Vaishnava families, but he was so intense what he was pounding on the table, his face was getting flush with blood, and he said it was so shocking and astonishing. We couldn't understand everything that he was saying or much of what he was saying. He said, but what we could understand is he was trying to force some sort of nectarine substance down our throats. He said, that we could understand. And Guru Maharaj said when he witnessed these things later, that seeing the face like pink, white, it looked like this particular type of lotus flower that's described in the scriptures. So when he says things in his songs like Ati Komala Kanchana Dirga Tanum Nindita Hema Mrinala, Madam, what is he saying? That he looks so beautiful. His lotus face and even his neck is like a golden stem of a lotus flower. Is saying Nindita. It makes it's like the lotus looks like Ninda, blasphemy, compared to how beautiful he is. That's one Sanskrit way of expressing appreciation. Anyway, that's Saraswati Thakur. With that intensity, the Kripaya, Hari Kirtan Murti. Later, he observed, he said, I was one man sitting alone in the jungle of Mayapur. And he said, now I have 500 men who say what I say. In other words, he infused them with his Krishna conception, infused them with his Krishna Nam, and turned them into distributing agents. Right? And Guru Maharaj encapsulates this in the last line of the Nikhila Bhuvana Maya sloka, where it says, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. So he's saying, Vilas means play and divine play. Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. May the divine words and the kirtan and the preaching of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, may that play in our hearts eternally. So that's really what this is. Guru Maharaj will say that the kirtan is not only with the drum and the kartals and the singing. So, and quoting Saraswati Thakur again, he said, kirtan means a fight. Who will say that? Who could say that other than Saraswati Thakur? And I mentioned this before when we presented Search for Sri Krishna to Srila Guru Maharaj. There's that picture of Saraswati Thakur with the beard and in the half lotus position. And it's taken, he's showing everything. The Vairagya with the beard, the yoga, the Jnani. He's got all, but he's showing the devotee is above all of those. And we put as the caption something Guru Maharaj said, which was, he declared totalitarian war against illusion, Maya, including all other existing conceptions of religion. And I thought, maybe I've overstepped the bounds here in putting this as a caption. I was a little worried how Guru Maharaj will respond to that, because it's not your typical caption. Usually you say, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati founded the, this says, he declared a totalitarian war, and he's, And when Guru Maharaj said, I'm showing the book and reading it to him and like looking at Guru Maharaj, he started like smiling and glowing. And he said, if you said nothing else, my Guru Maharaj would be perfectly represented there. We're like, yay! But that thing, Kirtan means a fight. Saying Krishna conception fighting the Maya misconception. That's really what we're doing. Right? But this, when we do the Harinam, like a parade. It's like like when they have the political campaign and the people go march and they have some slogans and people, what is this? They go, oh, well, you should hear about it. You know. So it's like that. But what we want is we're engaged in a battle, a fight. We're making propaganda in favor of Krishna conception against Mayak misconception. There's people are being bombarded 24 hours a day with humanistic propaganda and different types of atheism, agnosticism, blah, 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 blah. Right? So we're not looking for a fight. But Saraswati Thakur once, Guru Maharaj also compared him to Muhammad Ali. You know Muhammad Ali, the famous fighter? You know what he used to say? He would say, when he was Cassius Clay in his early days, that's how he got everyone's attention. He'd go, I am the greatest! He would always say that. I am the greatest! And he would make up poetry and things like that. But so Saraswati Thakur didn't say, I am the greatest. He said, Guru Maharaj said, but like Muhammad Ali, he said, previously in India, they have a place called Maidan, or Maidan, means it's like a park and a meeting ground in a park. They have one in Calcutta, they have one in every major Indian city. So what used to be years ago is wrestlers would go there and say, I challenge anyone, can you defeat me? And then fight. So Guru Maharaj said, Saraswati Thakur is like, I challenge anyone. What Bhaktivinoda Thakur is given, Rupa Goswami, Kaviraj Goswami, there's nothing higher than this. I challenge you. That he had that mood. Prabhupada had that mood a little bit, also, well, a lot. And told us to kind of like tone it down a little bit because we weren't so qualified. But Madhvacharya, when he would go to a town, speaking of the dancing of elephants, the elephant procession would come in and drummers, and we have mridangas, but they'd have those big loud drums and they would drum and he would challenge all the Mayavadis to come and fight with him. That was his mood. Not exactly Trinadapi Sunichena, but but it's not for his own ego. It's for the dignity of the Guru Varga. That's a little different. Jiva Jaya Abhirakshitam Sukashiva Brahmana Samanitam. Jiva Goswami fighting a little bit like that to keep the dignity of the Guru Varga. So, Kirtan, reproduction, reproducing, that's what it is. So if we're reproducing, what are we reproducing? Someone say, oh, you mean saying the same thing over and over again? No. That's why it has to be initiated devotee, because what are you reproducing? Who is the agent of connection? Right? So you have to be in connection with a real agent, and you're reproducing faithfully. Like you know the word fidelity, hi-fi. Now we have Wi-Fi. Before Wi-Fi, there was hi-fi. Not high five, hi-fi. Means high fidelity. Fidelity means, normally it means faithful. It's like a Latin word, right? Fidelis, fidelity, means true to the original. So they used it in sound. They said, oh, this is a high fidelity recording. And Gurudev liked advertisements for this one company. What was it? His Master's Voice. It was like RCA later, but they would show, the old-time record player, and it has a horn, like a funnel, and what they show is a dog, and the dog's like listening to the recording. You understand? And it says, his Master's voice. It's saying, it's so perfect that the dog thinks, I'm hearing my Master's voice. That was the idea behind that picture. Do you understand? Dog is faithful, right? He's faithful to the Master and saying, here's a recording of the Master's voice. Dog sitting there, oh, my Master's voice. Gurudev liked that picture very much, so think about it. Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. Guru Maharaj is saying, let my Master's voice play in my heart eternally. That's a devotee. That's a pure devotee. The Master's voice is playing in your heart. That's what's happening to all of us. Every day of our lives, the Master's voice is playing in our hearts. And that's why we have some conflict. Because we can hear the Master's voice playing in the heart and then realize, I need to improve. But the real devotees are saying, oh, I don't want to hear that voice. I want to do wrong. I don't want to hear that voice. I want to do some wrong. No, real devotees saying, no, may I be so blessed, fortunate that I may hear my Master's voice in my heart eternally. And Hi-Fidelity, try and be faithful to what is heard. That's what it is. Only a devotee can do that. Once someone said to Guru Maharaj, isn't it more important to distribute books than to write them? And because so much had been heard about book distribution. And Guru Maharaj said, a non-devotee can distribute a book. So, but only a devotee can write a book. You can hire a non-devotee to distribute books. Right? But you can't hire someone to write a spiritual book, a book about Krishna consciousness, that will have any real substance to it. And even one so-called devotee, remember I was talking about Sushir Kumar Ghosh, Tarun Kanti Ghosh? Didn't I talk about him recently? Amar Gauranga? Yeah, so his great-grandfather, who is one of the trustees, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, and I mean, I say this as, who am I? But he wrote this book, Lord Gauranga, and called Amiyanimai Charit in Bengali. And Guru Maharaj said himself, when he read this in college, he said, I devoured it like nectar. But later, when he came to Gaudiya Math, Saraswati Thakur said that, what did he say? Nija Gauranga Gorile. He's presented the Gauranga of his imagination, enjoyment. And it sounded like a good idea. This man said, oh, I'm going to take a little bit from Charitamritam, Chaitanya Bhagwat, and you go, oh, well, that'll be very nice. And what did Saraswati Thakur said? No substantial devotee will find anything there. He's presented the Gauranga that amuses him. Not what pleases the higher devotees. Once when some devotees thought that they're telling Guru Maharaj something he doesn't know, they're saying, oh, there was a Chaitanya Charitamritam written by one man in 1950, And Guru Maharaj said, oh, did he present Antya Lila first? And they go, yeah, that's the name. And Guru Maharaj said, oh yeah, I know about that. He said, his wife had just died. And he felt that feeling separation from his wife, that gave him some insight into the separation of Radharani And Mahaprabhu, Guru Maharaj is saying like, this, you think you will read this book and get some insight about what Radha Bhav is and who Mahaprabhu is? A Vaishnava Mukod Girnam Putam Harikatamritam. So Sanatana Goswami is saying, don't hear the holy name, don't hear about Krishna, except from a real authorized devotee. And what does he say? Sarpo chistam yatapayo, Shravanam naiva kartavyam. Shravanam, hearing, naiva karta, don't. Sarpo chistam yatapayo. He says it's like milk touched by the cobra. It becomes poison. What was supposed to be tavakata amritam, life-giving nectar, is now poisonous. So it's not just a mild thing either. So, but, well, in Brihad Bhagavatamritam, Sanatana Goswami invokes saying that you should finish with a sweet. Like at the end of the meal, you should give a sweet. Now I have to say something sweet because I just gave the bitter at the end. That's not a good idea.